Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you're new to my channel, my name is Melissa and I'm a nursing student. I also have my master's degree in healthcare administration, and in today's video we're going to go over how you should format your resume to make it more attractive to employers when you're applying to jobs. Okay, so for the purpose of these career prep videos, I have created a sample resume for a Mrs. Jane Doe. With the glare, you probably can't see it, but I'll go ahead and put it up on the side of the screen, the resume, so that you can look at it. So in today's video, we're going to be going over how you should be formatting your resume. You can always use a resume template. I advise against using a resume template if you can help it. Although they can be easy, one, they're not always free, so sometimes you have to pay for them. And even if they are free, they can be difficult to edit one or two things when you're going back to kind of tailor your resume to specific jobs. Oftentimes you'll have to kind of redo the entire template or re-download the entire template, versus if you were to do it on Word or if you were to create a resume from scratch, it's easier to just go into Word, edit one or two things, add or take out one or two things, and then save a new version of your resume. So it's just personal preference. I personally like to just kind of create a resume from scratch, but if you want to create a template, it is a good way for your resume to be structured in a neat and organized fashion. So just as a golden rule of thumb, I always say that a resume really should not be a long, bogged down essay of your previous work experience. A resume should be a short and condensed, bulleted summary of your previous work experience relative to the jobs that you are applying for. So because of this, no matter how much work experience you have or how many years you've been in the workforce, your resume really should not be more than one sheet of paper long. So it can be front and back, but really it should only be one sheet of paper long. If it is any longer than that, in my opinion, you can cut it down. There are areas that you can take away from, or there are areas that you can condense to get it down to where it needs to be. If your resume is too long, that can be unattractive to employers. And especially if you are applying to a job that a lot of people are applying to, there may only be one position and 100 applicants. Employers are going to do whatever they can to weed out any of the unnecessary applicants or to make the pool of applicants smaller. So literally, if your resume is too long, they will toss it in the trash before even taking a look at it, just to make their pile a little bit smaller. So you want to make sure that you make your resume as attractive as possible so that it's easy to read and it really grabs the attention of employers. So now, just going down the list of this resume, it's always important to have your name at the top of the resume. That should be the very first line on your resume. Your name can be bolded to stand out. You can put it in all caps. You can also make it one or two font sizes bigger. I personally would advise that you don't make your name too huge. You just want to make your resume kind of look neat and organized. So if you do make your name bigger than the rest of the text on your resume, I wouldn't go up more than one or two font sizes. Next, you want to make sure that you have your contact information. So I always think a phone number and an email address are good. Maybe if you have two phone numbers, like a home phone number and a cell phone number, you can do that as well. I personally do not think that you should use your address. I went and listed all the reasons why you should not put your address in a previous video. I will go ahead and link that in my description down below. But if you choose to put your address on your resume, this first section is where you would put it. Now we're going to move on to the objective. So the goal of the objective is just to summarize what you are looking for in a position. So for this resume, I wrote seeking a fast-paced environment with a collaborative team in a compassionate healthcare setting. Depending on what type of job you're applying to and what field you're going into, this will change. But for the most part, you want it to just be short, sweet, and to the point. It does not need to be a whole paragraph. If you even have this section at all. Some people don't need this section. Sometimes it's called objective, sometimes it's called summary. I personally think if you are looking to go into a new field, a field that you don't have a lot of experience in. So me, for example, I am applying for new grad nursing positions and I have never been a nurse. For me, I think it's a good idea to put an objective of what I'm looking for. But if I have been a nurse for years, I personally think this is something you can take out of your resume. It's just kind of personal preference whether or not you want to include it. So now the next section that I have on this sample resume is licensure and certifications. On this resume, it's just licensure, but depending on your resume, it could also put certifications there. This section either goes at the front or at the start of your resume, or it goes back toward the end. For me, as a new grad nurse, I put it up at the beginning of my resume because I want employers to know what degree I'm getting, because you can get different degrees as a nurse. You can become an LPN, you can become a registered nurse with your associate's degree, or you can get a bachelor's degree. Some people do a direct entry level master's in nursing. So I want it to be right there front and center that I'm getting my bachelor's degree in nursing and letting my potential employer know when I am projected to graduate from my degree. So for those of you guys that are watching this that are finishing up nursing school, or you're still in nursing school and you're applying to jobs for after you graduate, I think it's good to say when you are eligible for the NCLEX, because of course you don't have your licensure yet, but you're going to be getting your licensure. So you should write down what license you're going to get, and then right underneath that, you should write down what school you went to or what degree you're getting, and when you're projected to graduate if you have not graduated already. So as of me filming this video, I have not graduated, and neither has Jane Doe in my sample resume. So I just put spring 2024, so employers know, even though that hasn't happened yet or that's approaching us, that is the cohort that Jane Doe will be graduating in. So next is the meat and potatoes, the bulk of the resume, your experience, your job experience. It is very important that you only put relevant job experience. So for Jane Doe, she is applying to be a new nurse, so she should only put down job experience that is related to that. For those of you guys watching this video that are like me, who you've never been a nurse, you've never worked in direct patient care, maybe let's say that you've been in retail before, or you were in the food services business, maybe you were a server or bartender. Even though you do not have relevant job experience related specifically to nursing, you want to list all of your job tasks at your previous job that have skills that can be used at the bedside or that can be used in nursing. So if you were in retail, you worked with customer service, you had to kind of calm people down, you had to do interrelational work where you were resolving conflict. You can put all of that in your resume for becoming a new grad nurse. Maybe if you were in leadership or you were used to delegating tasks, if you worked in a restaurant, you can also put that down, because nurses do have to delegate tasks and they do have to serve as leaders. If you trained people at your previous job, like trained new hires, you can go ahead and put that down on your resume, because one duty of nurses is that we need to educate our patients and patient families when we are administering care. So as you can see, even though somebody without healthcare experience does not have certain things about taking care of the patient, there are certain skills that no matter what field you're in, you can use them in nursing and you can use them in healthcare. Another thing, if you have absolutely no experience with healthcare or you have no transferable skills, if you have gone through nursing school, your clinical rotations, it is okay for you to write down where you did your clinicals and what skills you practiced at the bedside. So when you're listing your experience, you should start from most recent, so whatever job you have now, and that includes if you're a student, if you're a full-time student, I would go ahead and put that on your resume, and you work your way down to the last job that you had. So if you had a job 5 years ago, that'll be the last thing on your resume. The job that you're at right now will be the first thing on your resume. You really want employers to see what you're up to now. You also want to list what dates you have been at your job. So if you are currently at your job, you would write that you are presently still there, and you would write when you started. For any other jobs you've had in the past, you would write when you started those jobs and when you ended those jobs. Now, when you're listing your job experience, you want to make sure that it is in bullet points. You do not need to write full sentences. You want to make it as condensed as possible, because you don't want your resume to be too long. So as you can see, for this, the first experience is student nurse, and I wrote assist staff nurses in blank. So you don't need to write 2 or 3 sentences on how you assisted staff nurses during your clinicals. You just kind of want to write kind of short action items. Another thing, when it comes to formatting of your resume and just making sure that it is neat and clean, you want to make sure that everything is uniformed. So in this mock resume that I have, I put a period after each bullet pointed sentence. You don't have to put a period there. You can, it doesn't matter. But whatever you choose to do, make sure that it is the same throughout. Another little tip is at your current job, you want to use present tense for every single bullet point. And then for previous jobs, you want to make sure that you use past tense. So when you look at this mock resume, Seattle Grace Hospital is a previous job of Jane Doe's. So she assisted nursing staff. And at Hillman College, where she's currently a student, she assists nursing staff. You want to make sure that your grammar is good on the resume, and you want to make sure that everything is uniformed and just that it makes sense. That way you can kind of show your employer that you have basic grammar skills and that they should hire you. Now the last thing is volunteer experience. So in this mock resume, I went ahead and put volunteer experience of Jane Doe. In my opinion, you don't need to put volunteer experience, but I would advise you to do so in certain circumstances. So like I mentioned, if you don't have any previous work experience in the field that you're applying to, especially if you're doing like nursing or healthcare, but if you have relevant volunteer experience, you should absolutely write down your volunteer experience just to add to your resume and to show employers that you do have some experience doing what you're applying to do. Another time that I would advise people to put down volunteer experience would be if their resume is short and they kind of want to beef it up a little bit. You don't need to make the volunteer experience super long, but it's just kind of something to add to your resume just to make it a little bit longer if you're struggling with that. Usually I find that people are struggling with condensing their resume, but if you're one of those people that needs to make it longer, this is a great way to do it. And then the third time that I would advise you to use volunteer experience would be if you have a gap in employment, and volunteer experience can kind of show that you were doing something while you were not working. So if you maybe took off a year for personal reasons, or just for whatever you have going on in your personal life, you were not working for a year and there was a year gap, but during that time you volunteered somewhere, I would absolutely put that on your resume to show employers that you were doing something while you were not working. And so that is it for this video on just some tips on how to format your resume and what to think about and keep in mind when you're making your resume. If you have any questions, please comment down below. If you have any personal questions, as always, my email address is in the description box below. Thank you guys for watching this video. Oh, don't forget to thumbs up the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.